Welcome to another episode of Let There Be Talk. It is a Monday, June 3rd. Welcome aboard. Thank you for tuning in once again. Here we are on the Rock and Roll Comedy Express train, riding you right into the next weekend, hopefully. Keeping the wheels on. Once again, all of you, the listeners. Without you, I ain't shit. Anyway, how are you guys? Feeling good out here? Microdosing like a motherfucker. Just waking up, getting this episode together for you guys. And what a great, great guest today. I was sitting there thinking, laying in bed while I was editing this episode, thinking, I don't know if you would call it underrated, but Friends... There's just not enough talk about how great Friends are. Old friends, new friends, friends that come and go, friends that go away, enemies and then become friends again. All that stuff brings incredible joy to your brain. And sometimes you only need a handful of great friends. And whatever it is, what I'm trying to say is an old friend of mine. An old friend, and I realize what joy people can bring to you in a conversation if you haven't seen somebody for years, say 20 years, I have not seen this man, and then you run into that person and boom, it opens this giant, massive memory bank of great old good times. There's nothing like that. That is a high that you can't buy on the street. This is my friend today, Mr. Eric McFadden, an absolute guitar genius, a grinder, a workaholic. I can relate to this man so much. He's been working all his life, and probably 99% of you don't know who he is, and I feel the same way. I work every day, and you're out there just going, is anything going to ever happen? But at the end of the day, you realize it has been happening. It's been happening my whole life. It's been happening all of Eric's life. And that is the thing of doing art and going through life, doing exactly what you want to do. No boss, no rules, just a complete art explosion. That is what Eric McFadden has been doing his whole life since I met him back in the 90s in San Francisco. An incredible guitar player. He's played with George Clinton, Eric Burdon and the Animals, Reverend Horton Heat, Kev Moe, Widespread Panic, Nels, Cline, Mike Watt, Joe Strummer. Yes, you did not hear that wrong. He has played with Joe Strummer. His band opened for Joe Strummer. He hung out with Joe Strummer, the only guy I know that's done that. An incredible guest. Tons of music out there, and it was a fantastic day to sit down with this man and catch up and dig way deep back into the great rock and roll scene of the 90s in San Francisco. I feel very blessed that I was part of that scene and had friends like Eric, and every night would just be out playing live music. It's crazy to think about. Every night, load up the fucking amp, the guitar, and head down and sound check, eat a $5 burrito, and then play rock music. Wow, what a concept. Anyway, he is here today, and after you listen to the episode, do yourself a favor and go check out all of Eric McFadden's music on iTunes, YouTube, his website, see him live. This man is a monster of a player. And just look at who he's played with, and you're going to be like, how have I not heard of this guy? And maybe you have heard of this guy, and you're one of those people that have been like, I've been telling people about this fucking guy for years. I love you for that. All right, let's see what we have happening here. This week, I'm going to be headlining at the La Jolla Comedy Store. I have not been there in over a year, and I hope that all of you in San Diego and all of that area, or wherever you're at, fly out to San Diego for these gigs. The La Jolla Comedy Store is one of the best rooms in America, and you will, I guarantee you, it'll be worth the trip wherever you fucking come from. That's this weekend, 7, 8, 9. Get your tickets, DeanDelRey.com. Also, you Patreoners out there kicking ass, my main man, the king of the Del Raisers, Mark Browne, thank you, buddy. And Adam Perez, a brand new Patreoner. Welcome aboard. I think we're at episode 35 now of the bonus episodes, and I'm feeling pretty good about them. I'm feeling good. I'm out there just telling you my life. They're kind of like a Dean Del Rey diary. Or maybe diarrhea, however you look at it. Anyway, patreon.com/Dean Del Rey. Hey, what's happening with your hair, people? I'm asking you, what is happening with your hair? 2 out of 3 guys are going to experience hair loss by the time they're 35. Introducing Keeps, the easiest and most affordable way to keep the hair you have. These FDA-approved products used to cost a fortune, but thanks to Keeps, they're finally inexpensive and easy to get. For 5 minutes now, and starting at just $10 per month, you'll never have to worry about hair loss again. Now listen, this is a free opportunity for all the Del Raisers. Free. Use this stuff. It helps you and the podcast. To receive your first month of treatment, go to Keeps.com/Delray. That's Keeps.com/Delray. That's a free month of treatment at Keeps.com/Delray. Hair today, hair tomorrow. You know what I'm saying? You've been washing your hair, watching that shit fall out? Save it with Keeps. Getting started with Keeps is so easy. Sign up takes less than 5 minutes. Just answer a few questions, snap some photos of your hair, and then send it off. A licensed physician will review your information online, recommend the right treatment for you, and then it's shipped right to your pad. Full-blown rock and roll hair can be had again. To receive your first month of free treatment, free! Are you hearing me? Free! Keeps.com/Delray. That's Keeps.com/Delray. That's a free month of treatment at Keeps.com/Delray. Do it, fools. Don't be dumb. This is free stuff. Everybody loves free stuff, right? I mean, look at it. That's why you listen to this podcast. It's free. If I asked you for $5, you probably wouldn't be listening to you. Oh, $5. I'll just find another one. Yeah. All right. Anyway, I hope everybody's good. Let's get down into the episode. I guess that's all I got. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review on iTunes. Keep the candles lit. Here he is, Mr. Eric McFadden. All right, here we are, another episode of Let There Be Talk. This guest today is a very, very old friend. Mr. Eric McFadden, how are you, buddy?
I'm damn good, man. It's good to see you and be in your new crib here.
Yeah. How, we met in the 90s at the Paradise Lounge, pretty much.
That is where we met, because you were in a band called Two-Lane Blacktop.
Right.
And my band at the time, Liar, were big fans of Two-Lane Blacktop. And I remember we were new to town, and we saw you guys at the Paradise Lounge, man, where we were picking up some gigs, and we thought, hey, maybe we could do some gigs with Two-Lane Blacktop, man. So,
well, we gigged quite a bit together.
Yeah, we did. I mean,
Sushi Sundays.
Oh yeah, this is like 95, 96, 7, whatever, mid-90s, right?
Back when you could make a living playing music because the rents were cheap. I think I was paying $7.50, and I lived in the Avenues.
Yeah, those were the days to be in San Francisco. I mean, you could still actually survive and be an artist, be a musician out there. But I mean, that's obviously not the case anymore. They kind of ruined that for us, whoever they are.
Yeah. Well, you were in San Francisco the same exact time I was. As far as I was there forever. You come from New Mexico, but what I'm trying to talk about is we remember the first .com before the techies. So we're playing the Paradise, we're playing Slims, we're playing DNA Lounge, we're playing I-Beam, Nightbreak, all the venues, bottom of the hill.
Oh yeah! Thank God they're still there.
Yeah. Great American Music Hall.
Yep.
Bimbos.
Right. Wow, man.
All those. What was that one bar on Van Ness? That was it was just right there by Union Square. They would do gigs. That was
what was it? There's a place called El Rio.
Spank, or I forget what it was called. But anyway, we played everywhere.
Yeah.
And then the .com thing was the first thing that came in, and the landlords were all getting greedy and just booted everybody out.
Well, they saw dollar signs.
Or they bought them out.
Yeah, because they had money. All these guys, for some reason, had money. Who knows where it was coming from, but they had money. So they could just say, well, we'll pay you double that, and then, greed was prevalent,
But that folded very quick because those were all what they called stock options.
Right.
And those companies all folded. So one week people are like, I'm worth $2 million. I know one person sold their stock options like 3 months into their job and moved to LA.
Yeah.
The smartest person I know sold it for like $3 million, bought a house behind the Laugh Factory,
and then watched it all collapse, watch the bottom fall out.
And was like, wow, I can't believe it. Everybody else was like, I'm living in San Fran, I'm having $300 steaks, and that shit collapsed quick.
Yep.
But it left a ripple effect in the city because everybody left and it was tumbleweeds and all the clubs were closed.
Right. So suddenly everybody's panicking. These guys are trying to fill the vacancies, but they screwed over all these artists and they split.
Yep.
So now they're like, so it kind of, kept things cool for a minute as far as rents go. At least that stabilized a bit. But
you were out there. Now, when you first get there, what year do you get to San Francisco? Because I just kind of remember all of a sudden, here's this guy, Eric McFadden, a liar, and played an insane flamenco guitar style.
Yeah,
you played rock, but it was just this crazy style.
It incorporated a lot of that flamenco type thing in there, yeah. And there was 94 that I moved there. I had come out, of course, on tour a few times, come through, played the Paradise or whatever, the Chameleon, Chatterbox, whatever back in the day. But 94 I moved out there, and then got my band to move out slowly over the course of the next few months. And so 2 bands, Liar came out and then Alien Lovestock came out, but Liar was sort of what I was focusing on. And man, it was quite the transition. I was just kind of sleeping on remember Michael Dean and Bomb and all that.
Oh yeah.
And then and Bean from Helios Creed, basically. So I'm sleeping on their floor, and he bought a rice cooker so we could just live off of rice and steal a few condiments from like local, convenience stores or what have you, or corner stores. So that was the existence there. So I kind of played in his band for a while as a way to enter into San Francisco. They drove out to New Mexico. We played a couple of gigs. They put me in the back of the car. It was miserable. I was like in the back, just crammed in this like hatchback, laying back there with my amp and guitar and like a bag of shit. And that ride from San Francisco or to San Francisco was like pure misery. But I had $75 in my pocket, and the Paradise said they'd give me some Wednesday happy hour gigs, so I figured, I'd get by somehow.
What was the appeal of San Francisco at the time? It was really a great music scene, right?
Great, man. There was vibrant, man. People were. You could play. There was venues everywhere. People actually came to the shows. They came out, and. So, there was a lot of appeal. Coming out there and having this opportunity to actually play, gigs, like...
You could play almost nightly.
You could play all the time. It wasn't any of this like, oh, you can't, this exclusivity clause about playing...
No radius miles or anything.
Radius thing, yeah. So you could just play. And then you'd have the East Bay, you'd have, Marin, you'd have, So it was a pretty great time, all around, You just walk across the street to, Paradise, after go to Slim's and then go to, the 11th Street thing was happening. And of course I was fully immersed in that shit for a good while, and I kind of ended up on tour And then that was sort of, at the time I ended up going, like when George Clinton came along, right? And
does he see you at the Paradise, or how does this happen? Because Liar's kind of blowing up. You win a whammy or whatever.
Remember the whammies?
Yeah, you win a whammy. And did you play Hate Street Fair?
Yeah, we played Hate Street Fair. We were doing all kinds of cool. I mean, it was a good time. I mean, I remember it being one of the, you know, like for me, I was kind of emerging out of the darkness because Albuquerque had gotten dark for me. I was, you know, drinking like myself into oblivion, and you know, everything was just looking dismal. So when I went out to San Francisco, about 6 months into that, everything just started getting good for me, you know. And
yeah, and look at that time period. You got like Sister Double Happiness.
Yeah.
You got Four Non Blondes.
Right. Yeah.
You have Protein.
Protein, man.
Josh's
Josh,
band.
yeah.
Horsey
was playing.
Horsey.
Jim Campolongo and Chuck Prophet were out there.
Those guys. You know, it was just booming.
Oh yeah.
Primus and all that, because your music was a little outside the box,
right?
And Primus and all that stuff was also happening.
You know, Primus was the first time I ever went to the Bay Area, man. I went out there, a girlfriend who lived out there, and I went out to see her. This was 88 or 89, and so we went out to a movie, and then we went to Berkeley Square. We were in the East Bay, and there was a band called Primus playing, who I'd never heard of, right? But I'm going, this guy's insane, like the whole band, but it was this bass freak, man. Like, so I just somewhat astounded by, you know, his miraculous bass chops, as anyone would be, you know. And so that's when I first met Les Claypool, right? Was at that gig, and then I ended up moving out there a few years later, and then of course we got back in touch and blah blah blah. But yeah, Primus was like kind of the first band I ever saw. Them and MCM and the Monster were playing.
Oh wow!
Yeah, double bill, man. That's right.
Oh, Stone Fox.
Stone Fox, man.
That's the band I was talking about.
There we go.
My brain's working a little
bit.
Georgie,
yeah.
Yeah,
right.
yeah. You know, I remember that George Clinton was playing quite a bit at the Paradise with these like kind of semi-secret gigs. It reminds me a lot of what Dave Chappelle does now.
Right.
George Clinton would just come to town in his bus.
Yep.
And he'd be like, I'm playing at 2 a.m. at the Paradise. And this is when Snoop Dogg is really hitting.
Oh, yeah.
And he kind of brought back the flavor of George Clinton, P-Funk, Funkadelic.
Yippee-yo,
all that. So now there's a whole new generation of people that were listening to that music, found through Snoop Dogg and going backwards.
That's right.
And he starts playing Paradise. And I remember he would play and it'd be like 5-hour shows.
Yeah.
How does he see you? Does he hear about you through the Paradise, like Tony Isabella or something?
You know, oh man, Tony, how about that? Man, you know, actually the way George happened, I had a friend named Gina Hall who would come to my shows out there. And she was good friends with George Clinton. She just kept saying, oh, you got to meet George. You got to meet George. I'm like, okay, yeah, one of these days. But one day he was coming to town to play, and she set up this recording session. And George Clinton and a few of the P-Funk folks were going to Hyde Street to record this theme song for her, for like a talk show she was going to do. And she thought I should be on the session. And that's kind of how it happened. So throughout the course of the night, a couple of my band members and his guys were just in the studio, just tracking shit all night long. And like at around 9 a.m. when we finally decided to stop tracking.
Yeah, that guy.
As it goes with the, you know.
Yeah, that guy, he's the real deal, man.
Oh, yeah, there's no, I mean, this is after a gig, too. Like, okay, we go after the show, we'll go into the studio, stay there till 9 a.m. So we go in there, and then we're listening back. So George kind of keeps going, he'll hear something, and it was like, hey, who did that? And then Matt, the engineer, would kept going, pointing at me. Oh, that was Eric over there. So after a few times of that, I guess I stuck in his brain or something. And a month later, he comes to town, or like 2 months later, and he calls me. So I get a call, and it's landline, of course.
Landline.
Yeah, remember those?
Yeah.
Yeah, the good old landline. So, and it's like, hey, this is George Clinton. I'm like, what? George Clinton's calling me? Okay. And I guess he got my number from Gina, right? And I was working with my buddy Ron Cat, too, at the time, Ron Cat Spearman. So, but he wants to go in the studio, which we do, and then he invites me out to sit in and blah, blah, blah. So it kind of it all developed from that. You know, it kind of sparked. Then I was on this miserable tour a couple years later with this guy that was...
A tour with them?
No, it was my own tour, but it was like, it It was during the time of my life when everything kind of fell apart, which was a couple of years after this, right, where you lose the wife, the house, the band breaks up, like a bad country
Right, because your wife was in Liar.
Right, bass player, right.
So then you realize you hit rock bottom, and then it's time to join George Clinton.
He just happened to ask me to jump on board at the right time, kind of saved my life. It was like a low point, kind of like, rock bottom point in my life, so he kind of rescued me from that, you know.
How did you hit rock bottom? Like Liar was happening, and then you decide to go out on the road? Because you are a lot like me. You've just been grinding all your life.
Yeah, man.
And after a while, I think people go, I don't have this in me anymore, and they drop out. What happened there?
You know, that was because we were kind of riding high there for a while. You know, I think I really felt the impact of it. You know how it is when everything's hunky-dory and then kind of collapses. You know, we had this beautiful house out there, you know, and my band was doing well, and I'm married, and we've got a good scene going, and our house is kind of a hub for a lot of people, too, so we're having a lot
Where
of...
was it?
Right there on Lyon and McAllister, right there in Western Addition, you know.
Oh, wow.
You know, so, good spot, you know.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
1988 Victorian, and...
Oh, just kind of a dead house kind of style, huh? Just multi people could stay if they wanted.
Yeah, people would come all kinds. I mean, it would be... George Clinton would come over and hang out, for example, and then people would just be... Or, like, you know, Mike Mills, REM would be in town. Mike Mills would come by if he was there, or... Sleepy Tom Gorilla Museum, the Widespread Panic guy, you know, schools would come by, so it was kind of all over the place, you know, and you know, so everything was feeling pretty good, but you know, all at once it kind of just caved in on me, and I think part of it was, of course, relationship going south didn't help, and that didn't help the band situation, and then so you kind of it's all kind of inclusive, you know, everything's sort of linked together. So once my relationship is failing, the band is over, and then I'm out of the house. So that's kind of...
Oh, she stayed there?
Yeah.
Wow. Oh, so she's the one that got the place or something? Or?
Yeah, she got the place.
Oh,
yeah.
So there you are on the street.
Hey, man, there goes my retirement. Hey, man. Not that I'd ever retire, but, you know, hey, I mean, you get a nice little nest egg out of that one.
Yeah.
You know how much that house would be was worth now?
Did she buy it?
Yeah, we owned the house.
Oh, you owned it?
We owned that house.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you buy that from, like, Liar money, or did she have money or something?
We didn't have money for down payment. We got married, and her dad was kind enough to put the down payment down. Then, of course, we had to, you know, maintain those payments. And,
of course.
And that was kind of, you know, that was hard to keep up with, I'll tell you that. But even at the time, and it was nothing comparatively at that time.
Oh, yeah, especially in that neighborhood. I mean, there was a little bit of crack dealing going on down there.
You know what happened? That's why we got the house so cheap. There was crack, and right after that, like within a month or two of us buying the place, they cleaned up the neighborhood, busted the crack houses. It went up like literally 2 months after we bought the place.
Score, because that was a shady neighborhood.
Yeah,
I remember walking around that neighborhood. Sometimes you'd just be like, oh wow, but. It was never crazy shady.
Nah, man.
It was just drugs.
You're probably not going to get stabbed or shot. It was just drugs. Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't like Deep Mission or something.
Oh, man. Like Tenderloin.
Hunter's Point?
Oh,
how about that stuff?
Hunter's Point, man.
Hunter's Point.
Yeah, the place.
Or the Geneva Towers.
Yeah.
All those. Actually,
Good
people
times.
don't realize San Fran had some shady neighborhoods.
Yeah. I mean, with all this gentrification, the infiltration of all these new people, I guess it's kind of, you know, getting run out. But
even though it was there were shady neighborhoods, it always felt great.
Yeah, you know.
Back then, it always felt great.
You know what I don't see as much walking around? I don't see all the freaks. You know, I walk down the street and there's people wearing like, you know, some weird fucking leotard tutu with their hair.
That's gone.
I mean, it just freaks everywhere, riding a unicycle with a, you know, so... You know, that would just be commonplace. You know, they were everywhere.
Naked people.
Yeah, naked people. Right.
Yeah, even the Castro guy just walking naked. Yeah, it was just normal.
That was part of the beauty.
Never ever did you go like, what the fuck? It was just
that was just
how like, hey, we got to get a burger. A naked man.
And there should be a place like that.
Absolutely.
And so in San Francisco was that place. It should have stayed that place, but you know, I guess.
Are you still out there? Where are you now?
Man, I'm here in Los Angeles. I'm in Echo Park.
Echo Park. And how long you been here?
It's kind of hard to say because me and Delphine moved out here like 2013, but we were never really here. We moved into a place we didn't like. I was on the road constantly. Then we kind of re-entered about a year and a half ago in this place, or maybe almost 2 years ago in West Hollywood.
Oh, wow.
So,
You go out with Clinton. That's got to be a wild run for multiple reasons.
like joining the circus.
Yeah, it really is. At multiple points I've seen George, it seems like there's no real song structure, or there's a song structure. We know what we're going to play. We're going to play this song, and it'll start like this, and it'll end like this, but in the middle...
Who knows what's going to happen?
And how does all that work? So when you join, does he just say, you just play whatever you want?
Man, I'll tell you, the thing he would say is get in where you fit in. So he'd be like, use your ears, listen to what's happening, and get in where you fit in. Like, find a part, you know? So that's what I had to do. It was like, all right, it's like these are songs I'm familiar with, a lot of them. A lot of times we play the obscure ones, you know, the old funkadelic tracks. And he would do the hits, but the hits could turn into who knows what in the middle and then end up back where, then you end up back at home. So I really was spending that time just trying to figure out what I should be doing up there on the fly pretty much.
Zero rehearsal?
There was no rehearsals for me like the first 6 months, a year of touring. Then one day he says, hey, we're doing a rehearsal. Hey, all right, nice time on that. What do you know? And I said, the thing is, all those other guys who've been in the band for 25 years or whatever, I mean, they, it's different. There was some young blood. I got in there, my buddy Ron Kett.
How many guitar players at the time? 3?
Yeah, there's Michael Hampton, a.k.a. Kid Funkadelic, Blackbird, McKnight. Those were like the lead guys. And then there was Gary Scheider and Boogie Mosen would play guitar as well. Now, Gary was singing mainly, and Gary and Boogie played sort of the funky little lines and some chordal stuff, where as all the solos and all that was Blackbird and Michael. Then, of course, when I joined the band, I'd been at a session. I came by a P-Funk session when he was in the studio, and I had my mandolin with me. So he's like, what's that? I'm like, it's my mandolin. Just coming from some, gig where I needed it. So I busted out, and I'm messing around with this riff. And George says, hey, what's that? So he throws down his chicken that he's eating and tells him to start rolling.
You're writing some tunes with him.
Yeah, like I just start playing this line, and he likes it. He starts saying some shit over it. And then the next time, that thing ends up on a record, actually, on the P-Funk album. Yeah, so that's how it happened. So he wanted me to play mandolin in the band. So I guess I do have the distinction of being the one and only mandolin player ever to join P-Funk. I started playing more and more guitars. It was like at least half guitar, but.
And you guys are just traveling around on that bus like a pirate ship.
Man, it was like, but there's 3 buses. When I joined, there's 3 buses, man.
3 buses.
2 band buses, 1 crew bus. Insanity. Because like you've got, every bus has got a completely different vibe, and it's kind of like. The crew bus is like, Cheech and Chong, billowing clouds of smoke when you open the door.
Multiple smokes, by the way.
Yeah. Smokes of all varieties.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like, and then there was Gary's bus, and then I was on what they call George's bus, which I would say is probably the mellowest of all the buses. When you think about the activity going on and the sort of kind of consumption is happening.
So, George, you would be on his bus, and when you guys are on there, is he just up all night and you guys are working music on a bus, or what's going on?
I didn't see George do a lot of sleeping. He must have done it sometimes. Sometimes he would do those power naps or not out of a place for a while to catch a few Z's before a gig, but, I didn't notice a lot of sleep. But, man, he had to be getting some. But there's a lot of activity. People, if you weren't watching a movie or listening to music or hanging out, there was the back lounge, which I would like to commandeer sometimes just because I wanted to kind of check out tunes or play the guitar. But the thing is, if I was back there working on a song, I might be working on like a Tom Waits tune or something just because I want to. He would come back there if he liked what he heard and say, hey, what's that? And I would say, oh, it's this Tom Waits tune called Clap Hands. And he would say, sing that first verse again. And then he would make me sing it till he memorized it. He'd say, now sing the second verse. And he would make me do that till he memorized it. Then the third verse. By the end of it, we're singing the song together, and he's got it memorized. So he was keeping himself sharp. He wanted to keep the wheels turning and keep that thing lubed up, So he was always kind of improvising, making up rhymes, lyrics, kind of learning songs. He was just keeping his mind active, keeping the creative juices flowing.
That guy, he is a fucking legend.
He's a legend and innovator. He
is the Grateful Dead of funk.
Oh yeah, he is fully. I mean, P-Funk, that's
Absolutely.
exactly what they are, man. I mean, you know, they were doing shit nobody was doing when they were doing it. I mean, and they were back then. You could even call them the punk of funk because they were out of the box. Like you had James Browne, you had Sly Stone, but then what P-Funk was doing, like, you know. Might have been the acid that helped kick that stuff in, but
yeah. You ever talk to them about that stuff, like how they wrote it? Were they on a lot of acid? And everything?
There was some of that going on. You know, there was some of that. That definitely fueled a lot of that funkadelic stuff early on. And I mean, it was such a great marriage of like that whole psychedelic rock or acid rock and funk and soul and all that that was happening at that time, and it had to be freaking some people out. You know.
Oh, God, could you imagine? Shit like Maggot Brain and all that. When you watch some of that stuff on YouTube and they had that crazy stage show going.
Oh, yeah, the mothership coming down.
The mothership coming down.
Come on, man.
That was next level 70s drug funk.
Oh, man. They were breaking barriers, breaking the rules. They were taking it to new places. Places, you know, on a mission like no other. I mean, yeah, they were on a mission with that stuff.
He'd never stopped. He's never stopped.
He has never stopped. He has been touring, writing, and recording all this time and still breaking some boundaries, man. He's like, they're taken out of the box all the time. And like, you know, even now, like I went back, you know, I toured with them for a while and I think I left in 2004, but I went back 2.5 years ago and I did a European tour with them and reunited with them for this tour. And George was more on than ever than I'd ever seen him.
That's smoking. So you left because it had to be kind of like you didn't think it was going to be that long. All of a sudden years go by and you got to step off the ship, right?
Man, you know, when I joined the band, I was thinking, oh, this is great. This is great transit. This is a great place for me to kind of get my head together and collect myself because my life had sort of gone down the tubes. But so I thought I'd give it a year and then I'll just jump back into what I was doing. But, you know, the year went by, 2 years, 3 years. Finally, So I finally had to go. But, you know, the real exit happened because some other buddies were starting a band and wanted me to join the band. So
Dave Schools and those guys? Yeah.
Exactly.
Dave Schools, what a fucking... That guy's a monster.
He's another great force of nature right there.
That just shows the caliber of your guitar playing by the guys you're playing with.
Yeah.
I always was blown away by your playing because it was just so original. And it was only a matter of time that somebody or multiple people were going to grab you. And especially, it was such a wise move for you to be in San Francisco because the musical palette was wide open.
Oh, yeah.
People were down with anything. That's what I was talking to Les Claypool about on the show.
Yeah, man.
You go from Primus to Death Angel, to Metallica, to Grateful Dead, to Santana.
And all of that.
All of that.
That diversity and that variety, man, that was part of the greatness of San Francisco, especially at that time, you know.
Actual, for real, melting pot.
Yeah, a true melting pot.
A true melting pot.
Everybody was into everything, all each other's stuff, you know, and that's the thing. It all crossed over, too.
Yeah.
And, man, I miss that about San Francisco. I mean,
well, that was really an artist community, a real one.
Yeah. And man, like when you talk about Les, my band, the Eric McFadden Experience, I had Paulo Baldi, Sam Bass, and Ben Barnes playing with me. And those guys also had their own trio called Deadweight. They were phenomenal, right? And Les had them open for a New Year's show. I think it was, I forget what year it was, but so Deadweight opens for Claypool, and they have me sit in, and that was my reconnection with Les, who I'd met maybe a few years earlier, right? And then, you know, so I ended up reconnecting with him and sitting over with Les for some gigs, blah, blah, blah. And years later, he played on one of my records, me and Wally Ingram's album. And, you know, that whole thing happened, and which led to, you know, all kinds of, you know, which, you know, sort of sprouted into other things, too. And, I mean, oh, yeah, dude, and I know that you're a fan of, how great is the Claypool Lennon Delirium, man? That
I got to tell you what, I think one of the major bummers of my show here in 7 years of doing it. I always do some research, but I don't like to do too much because I know most of the people's careers.
Yeah.
And I love an organic conversation, but with Les, he had so many projects that I wanted
yeah.
to focus on Primus when I had him on because I had all three guys on.
Oh,
and
right.
that was
yeah,
kind
yeah.
of the theme.
Well, sure. If you got all three guys, then you want to stick
Exactly.
with it. Yeah.
But a week after I had Les on, a guy goes, "Have you heard the Claypool Lennon Delirium?" I was like, "Nah." I put that on, and I immediately wanted to go talk to him for about 2 hours about that.
No shit.
And now their new record, which came out Friday,
Yeah.
this fucking band is smoking
This is one of the most happening things going on right now.
that I've heard.
Yeah.
And I've heard about 10 bands in the last 5 years that are blowing my mind.
Yeah.
Stuff like Marcus King.
Yeah, Marcus is great. That's where I ran into you after all that time.
Yeah, one of the greatest. St. Paul and the Broken Bones.
Yeah.
Claypool, Lennon Delirium.
That's right.
Rival Sons. All different
Yeah.
styles. Also.
All really fucking cool. It's great to know there's still great music coming out, and Paul O'Ball, my old drummer and Liar, and all my other projects at the time, he's drumming with them. So Paulo's on board with Claypool Lennon too.
Oh,
so.
he's the drummer in that?
Yeah. So we did a festival together. I played a festival where they were playing. I got to see him live. Great show. And our man, Mr. Paulo Baldi, holding it down on the drums.
That's
So,
amazing.
Yeah.
I love that when guys are still out there, old Bay Area
Yeah,
guys.
man.
Oh, that's
still happening. Still doing
that's
it.
fantastic. The Dave Schools, that project, I got to tell you,
Stockholm Syndrome, yeah.
yeah, what a group! And Dave Schools is just insane.
Oh, yeah.
Like
He
he's
did a great job of producing the albums, man, co-producing. And, yeah, he's just got great sensibility. He's just a great player, man. He's...
Did you ever slip into any of the Dead stuff? Play with any of those guys?
me and Kreutzmann have played together a little bit. We kind of hit it off pretty well, and I really like him, man. And so him and I have played together in a few capacities where we were doing like members of like Allman Brothers, Grateful Dead. So it was like me and Butch Trucks and Kreutzmann and O'Teal Burbridge and like Chuck Leavell from Stone.
Oh, he's so great.
So we've done stuff like that, and Bob Weir and I have crossed paths a few times, and we jammed once, and then but I haven't done any like the Phil Lesh and friends, even though so many of the guys I play with and associate with are doing that right now. Like Anders Osborne, who I toured with for 2 or 3 years, Luther Dickinson, all those guys. But I haven't jumped in on that thing yet. But I've been on the peripheral of some of that, and like I said, me and Kreutzmann have done things, but.
We kind of reconnected at the Comedy Store a few years ago.
Yeah, dude, I came in there and that's right. Mark was there.
Yeah, Marin.
And I'd run into Mark and I'm like, he's like, come out to the show. And then you were there. I'm like, holy shit. I hadn't seen you for years at that point.
What do you think? 20 years? Because I've been in LA almost 20 years.
Yeah.
So I hadn't seen you since San Fran.
Yeah.
I would say late 90s. It was the last time I saw you.
Yeah.
It was funny. There you were in the booth. You looked exactly the same. I was like, this fucking guy. This guy looks exactly the same.
That's called Satan, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I gotta get some of that Satan
You
in
gotta
me.
get some of that Satan, man. It'll do wonders for you. Just a dash will do you.
So I wanted to talk to you about this a lot because you are definitely a definition of a grinding musician.
Grinder.
Yeah, and it's unfortunately, the long-going joke is, I recently saw a great meme, but I've talked to many people about this. There was a meme, a guitar player was in a time machine.
Oh, yeah.
And he goes to 2030, and then he comes back. He goes, "Hey, I just went to 2030. Session guys are still making 100 a night."
Yeah.
Isn't that insane? I wanted to talk to you about this because in the 90s, you'd get about 100 a gig, which was great.
Yeah, man,
you get
especially
$100. You could get a $5 burrito, $1.50 beer, and $300 rent.
Dude, with the cost of living there, yeah, it all worked out.
And now here we are, 2019.
Yep.
Guys are playing live for like 150 a night.
Yep.
And parking's 25. Car insurance is 200 a month.
Oh, yeah.
A car payment, gas is $3.50 a gallon. And it seems like these fucking clubs, they just pay the same money like it's 1970.
Isn't that amazing that you can still be getting paid the same lousy money you were 20, 30 years ago or more? And that's the thing. I think a lot of people, I understand, like, people are living their lives. They don't know what goes on. They don't know how the plight of the musician or what have you. But the reality is, man, that I know that it's easy to get your music. I know you can go to Spotify and all that. And hey, you know what? You gotta get, you gotta roll with the times and the changes. But it's like you still have to buy food. You still have to buy clothes. You still have to pay for car insurance. You still have to buy gasoline. But what you can get for free is music, right? But it still costs us money to live. We got to make a living. It costs us money to record the music. It costs us money to get in the van or the bus or the whatever we're getting in. And but we have to get by on less and less all the time. And people can acquire your music more and more easily without having to pay you for it. So. That's just the reality. Now, that's not bitching and moaning, but that's the fact of the matter.
It's insane. I don't know anybody else that would work for free.
No, me either. And people, it's not like we have a commodity that people don't want. Nobody's into music anymore. No, people love music. Music is a part of everybody's life and important. And for some people, it is their life.
It's in everything. It's in the Starbucks while you stand in line. It's in the movies. It's on a TV commercial. It's in your car. It's in your head. Yeah. It's in the Target you shop in. Without all that, we have silence and your own fucking thoughts.
Right. Well, try a week without music. See what happens. So to say it doesn't have value is would be absurd or preposterous, right? So we know it. Music is pretty valuable to everyone. So. The way you value your cup of coffee that you're willing to pay a few bucks for every day, I think just kick down a little to the musicians, keep them going, sustain them, because music's important and it's valuable, and people just, I think it's just important. People just kind of don't forget that these guys out there, and guys and gals, men and women, boys and girls, are dependent on the people's support to make a living here, and it's expensive. I mean, just for me to get to a gig costs me like a significant portion of what I'm making at that gig, and then there's the maintenance of all your gear. You got to pay the players. It goes on and on. It's not a cheap pursuit. And
eventually it dwindled down for me, and I know you've done this to where you had to just play solo acoustic,
right? Yeah,
and then that gets burnt. You're dying to rock.
Well, that's the thing. It's great for a while. It's like, oh, this is nice, just me and a guitar, how intimate, and But yeah, then you got to go out and rock, and then you got to pay people, and they need to make a living. So you're like, I'm not trying to get a bunch of chumps out there with me. I got to get some real players.
I see it with these guys, these classic guys out there. They'll have let's say, I know you played in Eric Burdon's Animals, but let's say a guy like that. A friend of mine just said he went and saw somebody, an '80s band. I can't remember who it was, a new wave band, and it was the dude. And then 4 20-year-olds who will play for like $300 a week.
That's exactly right.
And he said they played and everything, but it just looked wrong.
Well,
you should have just had canned music.
Has it come to this, man? Has it really come to this? It has come to this. Believe me, man. And you're talking about Eric Burdon and the Animals? Dude, he did the same thing. Come on. And I love Eric. We're still bros. But like, I left the band, a while ago, and some of my friends that I was playing with stayed there for a while. But he ended up doing that, getting a bunch of kids. And
they'll get them they'll be from France or something.
Yeah, right.
You ever notice that? Like what happens is they go to France and tour, and the promoter hooks them up with a band.
Yeah.
And then he finds out how cheap they work, and he goes, well, this is just my band now.
Yeah.
So he's got like a European band that goes around, and then he'll have an American version. It's
pure economics.
Because his money's dwindling.
Everybody's money's dwindling.
Everybody's, and he plays the fuck out of it. Biker runs, fairgrounds, and casinos.
Pretty soon they're just going to have like homes for musicians. We all live in these like it's kind of like industrial housing or something.
Like a compound.
Like a compound. Just stick all the musicians in there, and then we just feed them a couple square meals a day. Like they go out and play for their
it's like scraps,
their meager lodging, and throw them a few scraps, and they go out and play. That's what it's going to be, man.
Have you
musicians out? Time for the gig.
Have you had to get a job?
Man, I don't know how I've managed to not have to get a job yet, but because there's been times where it looked pretty bleak, where it's pretty. There's times where I've had great years, man. I've had times where I had money in the bank and things were looking good, and then it could easily just go the other direction, like without warning, you know. So, you know, I was borderline a couple times, but somehow I've managed to pull myself through even those those times, even the most dismal of times. But you know, the fact that, you know, but it's been how many years I've been doing this, you know, it's like it's been a grind the whole time.
There's never been any like kickback.
Hey man, there's never been a time where like I think I'll just take a little time off and go, you know, like go to Brazil for a while, you know. Or
that'll never happen. Yeah.
I mean, you know,
it's brutal, right? I think about that too.
Oh,
like,
no,
people go, "Hey, you should take a little time off." I go, "With what money?"
Yeah. What you gonna?
Yeah.
Gonna go live with you? Was that what you're saying? You know.
I mean, it
takes some time off. That's laughable. Yeah.
That is laughable.
Hey, man.
Somebody could hit me with 90 gigs straight 90 days, and not once would I'd go, "Oh, where's the rest?" I'd be like, "Okay, do you have a few more?" Can we do some doubles in there?
Yeah, can we throw some doubles in there? Yeah, man, that's good because I tell you what, the times where you were working your ass off nonstop, you know, month after month. It wasn't like you said, like, yeah, maybe a couple weeks. Sometimes I'll say, okay, I'm not going to gig for a couple weeks, but that's about what you get, you know. And
what are you using for gear now? And like guitar wise and amp wise?
I still have my small arsenal of guitars I've collected over the years, except for the ones that got ripped off a few years ago, but that's another story.
You got some guitars stolen?
Yeah, I did. That was we were in Europe on tour, and they knew we were gone, and they hit us hard. So that was pretty. Yeah, that was painful. That was a rough one. And and Delphine stuff. They got all her nice clothes. Anything that was of value, period. They took it. And you know, so but I still got a lot of good gear. I've got, as far as my old, you know, vintage stuff, I still got a few of the old Gibsons, you know, Les Paul and an old arch top. And
What year Les Paul?
77.
Oh, cool.
Standard, yeah. And that's
what color is that? Sunburst?
It's a sunburst.
That
weird.
weird.
Kind of like the tobacco, kind of the darker sunburst.
Oh yeah.
And that's a beauty.
Is that heavy as fuck? That 70s era?
You know, it's pretty heavy, but I felt heavier. It's like it's somewhere in the middle there. But it's it definitely, you start feeling that one after a while. It's not that's not like a 3-hour gig guitar.
In Lyre, you were playing an arch top, right?
Played an arch top. I played that nylon, you know, that Spanish guitar.
That's right.
An arch top, and then I had a telly too that I played in there.
I don't remember that, but I remember that's what you're playing. That's what made it kind of really unique.
Yeah, right.
You would really lay into that flamenco stuff. And it was just, and then what about amp?
Supro is what I've been using. I've got, I'm endorsed by Supro, so I've got a couple of those, and I love the
San Diego version.
Got I've got the Black Magic, you got the Supreme, and I've got one called the Titan. So the Supro stuff is really happening. I love the sound of that, and then I'm also James Troussard guitars, man.
Those are great.
I got a couple of those, and
which ones you got? Like the telly rusted ones, or what?
Actually, I've got like I said, like a steel. It's a steel master called like a jazz master style.
Oh,
you know?
Very cool.
Like real chrome, and that's a beauty. And I've got a dobro that he made too, which is extremely pretty badass all around. So and then Godin, I've been with them for a while, and I've been using their arch tops.
Yeah.
So they've got like a Fifth Avenue and a Montreal. So I take those on tour. I take the James Troussard and the Godins on tour, and then of course my Spanish guitar, the La Patrie. But you know, in the studio, I'll bust out all the other stuff too. You know, just kind of go crazy. But that's the road gear. Unless I have to use backline, then I don't get to bring the Supros. But they have the Supros all over the country, so I often get to.
That's a great way to go. Just pick an amp. A lot of people use those Fender Blues deluxes or whatever. So
you know what you're going to get.
You know what you're going to get. You just bring your pedal board and roll.
The pedals help. Well, yeah. And then I've got the Pigtronics and MXR stuff like Dunlop, Pigtronics stuff, which is great. So.
Rest in peace, Jim Dunlap.
Man, right?
Just lost him.
Man, that's a shame, huh?
But he lived a great life.
He did, and you know what? I've never used any other guitar picks than Jim. Like since I was like 12, I've been using
that small little pick, huh?
Yeah, that little.
What the hell is that?
That's what you call a Jazz 3.
That's crazy.
Hey, guess what? It's also good for rock and roll, man.
Whoa, that's the same pick he is.
Not just for jazz anymore.
That's crazy. It's so small. Is that because you're using a lot of finger also?
You know, sometimes I'll tuck it here and use tuck it here and use the fingers. But also, you know, I don't need a lot of pick, just the tip. That's what she said, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. Who were your guys when you started out? Because your style is pretty unique. Who were you listening to?
Well, at the very beginning, I mean, it was like I dug through my parents' collection. They had great stuff. I have pretty young parents, and so they had everything from the Beatles and Stones and Bob Dylan and Stevie Wonder to like, you know, classical and jazz stuff. But then when I was really digging, then I found a Zeppelin record in there, and that kind of started, that really put me in another direction. Zeppelin was a big one for me. Jimmy Page, man,
the best,
and Jimi Hendrix, and then I discovered Queen and Black Sabbath and AC/DC and all this stuff. And after that, that was kind of the formative stuff. I mean, I just wanted to rock, and that was that. But I did start delving into some other kinds of stuff. I got turned on to flamenco pretty early on through taking a friend's son to a flamenco lesson. So that blew my mind. I ended up seeing Paco de Lucia when I was a teenager, you know, Django Reinhardt. So it started to kind of be this, you know, I started to kind of fuse that influence into it. So I was still into all my rock and roll, but then that happened, you know. Then I met this crazy jazz dude in New York named Pete Savelli when I was 17, and he kind of steered me, you know, off the deep end into some crazy, you know.
Yeah.
It was like, you know, he was in Ornette Coleman and John Coltrane, and then like just insane stuff. So we just started playing like avant-garde jazz stuff mixed with my influence. Like, and I was kind of coming from rock, and so he was like being turned on. Then I would see like the Coltrane record next to the AC/DC record on his thing, and he was like listening to both of these things. And so we had a band called Crisis, which was kind of like,
what was that, in the 80s?
That was in the 80s, yeah. That was in New York, and we did this thing. It was kind of like punk metal jazz thing, and then you know, so I was just going all over the place. I would just try anything really and listen to anything. But I think all that influence, you know, sort of the, you know, getting the rock and roll, the punk rock, the jazz, the flamenco, the blues, all that kind of just ended up kind of turning into whatever that, you know, whatever that became. And when I got to San Francisco, that was really Albuquerque, I mean, that was the formative years. I mean, New Mexico is where we were. That's really, you know, where I was coming up and you know, experimenting with all this. But coming to San Francisco, that opened up a whole new reality for me too. And I met, you know, our mutual buddy Josh Z pretty early on in there, because I was doing that Slish thing with Michael Dean and all that. You know, that's kind of where I started to really feel the freedom to do anything I wanted. You know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not give a fuck. You know, just kind of. Because it was San Francisco. They seemed that's what everybody else was doing. So.
Did you play with Joe Strummer or something?
Man, wow. See, Joe Strummer, one of my childhood heroes.
The king.
I mean, the Clash had such impact on me. I remember wearing out my Clash T-shirt, you know, as a teenager, and just kind of being blown away. That was, you know, because that was just something like unlike anything I'd been accustomed to. They were sort of a departure from the rock, you know, I was growing up with, and they kind of were my entry into punk rock, really, and like kind of expanded my horizons from there. But yeah, I did. Like, I met Joe Strummer at this show at the Fillmore.
The Mescaleros?
Yeah, Mescaleros.
I went to that, both of them.
Yeah. You were probably there. I mean, we were in the audience together. And
yep.
After the show, I was backstage because my ex Tiffany, you know, was working hospitality there. So I'm just kind of sitting upstairs in that area when everybody's kind of kicked out and they close it off. And you know, Joe was talking to some people. He was talking, you know, some of the band was hanging out, and I think Armstrong from
Tim,
Tim Armstrong from Rancid. They were talking, but I was just sitting there playing guitar, and I was jamming with a buddy there, and but Joe kept kind of looking back, and then finally says, "Hey man, are you hearing that?" And then he kind of came over, started listening, and he was way into it, and he's like, finally they were kicking us out, and so he just invited us on the bus to hang out. And that was a great hang. It was one of my. I mean, come on. At that time, I'm feeling like a 15-year-old kid, like hanging out with Joe.
Mind-boggling.
And we're just playing songs till the sunrise, you know, singing tunes.
On the bus, sitting there.
Yeah, he's pouring me Johnny Walker, you know, and we're just drinking and laughing and singing songs. And finally, he says, "Man, you got to come over and open a couple shows for me at the Troubadour next week. I'm like, count me in. And I'm thinking, inside I'm like, little 15-year-old kid going, yippee-yay, I'm going to go play with Joe Strummer. But I'm keeping my composure there.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I might be able to. I'll move some things
let
around.
Me see what I can do. Yeah. He's like,
Joe fucking Strummer.
He said, I'll put you in a nice shitty hotel near the club. I'm like, sounds great. So, he puts us up in the shitty hotel or motel rather. We play those couple gigs and get to hang out with him for the weekend. And that was a pretty great experience for me, and because, there's not many people in my life that could have really...
knock you out like that.
Yeah.
Joe Strummer, Keith Richards.
Sure, Keith Richards and the Zeppelin, Beatles kind of people. Like if I met Jimmy Page or Paul McCartney,
Jimmy Page.
Been like,
those are dudes where you're just like, oh, fuck.
Yeah, hallelujah.
Yeah, like I met Angus Young, and I barely remember, and I met him twice because it was just so electric.
You don't remember because it's almost like it's not happening.
It's just like you can't believe it. This is way before internet and stuff, too. You didn't see these people all day long on Instagram and stuff. So when you're hanging with him, it's like hanging with Joe Strummer. I mean, think about it right now, because he died after that.
Man, he died very shortly, and it was really surreal for me. I mean, and the loss had greater impact on me because of it, and it would have been difficult anyway. But I mean, one of my greatest memories is after that Troubadour thing, I was out on tour with P-Funk, and we were playing Fuji Rock in Japan, right? And this is one of the biggest audiences I've been in front of,
Huge.
Just adrenaline pumping through my veins playing for this audience. And after the show, I get off stage and pretty stoked, hanging out with like the Manu Chao and all the people that were there having a great time. This guy comes up to me and he says, "Are you Eric McFadden?" I'm like, "Yeah." I mean, Joe Strummer sent me to find you because he knew I was playing. He knew I played with P-Funk. And I'm like, "Joe Strummer sent you to find me? Really?" What's going on here?
Did you get any pictures with him?
Is that right? I've got like one photo. This is back before.
Of course,
nobody had an iPhone. I mean,
absolutely, none of that.
It was like I'm lucky to have a picture. So he says he's got a campsite up there in the mountains. His little camp there. They're doing a bonfire. Wants you to come outside. I bring my friend Shauna Hall with me, who was on tour with me in P-Funk from Four Non Blondes fame.
Yeah, I know Shauna.
You know Shauna well, of course.
Yeah.
So we go up there, but first I'm like, man, we need some booze. At this time that that was part of my MO. So we went into catering, couldn't find anything. We saw there was a box that had some bottles of like Four Roses bourbon, and so we grabbed a couple. I know it was wrong, but we did it. we stole the whiskey, man.
Yeah.
We went out there and went up to Joe's camp. And
they've been stealing from you all their lives.
Hey,
so.
man, it was about time I got a little back.
Yeah.
I have a right. I'm entitled to this bourbon.
Yeah.
We went out there and he's like, this is the other thing. He nicknamed me Lightning. So when we showed up, he was like, "Lightning's here." And I'm like, "What the hell? How do you like that?" I know that we already got some Lightnings. We got Lightning Hopkins. We got, but Joe decided I'm Lightning. So, and he's got the fire going and we're all just kind of hanging out and doing our thing. But he wants to do karaoke, but like, a cappella. There's no like backing track.
Right.
Let's go sing songs. So he's like, "Man, Lightning, you've got one." I'm like, so I'm sitting here singing my songs a cappella. Then somebody else would sing one. And it was just like, there was craziness going on. I mean, there was like motorcycles driving around in those round cages, like people twirling fire. And like, there's all this.
It's kind of like that documentary on his life. There's like, the bonfires. And those people would get together and share stories.
It was like that. He had the big bonfire going. We were singing songs, talking.
Out in Japan, huh?
It was amazing, man.
God.
We walked out into the woods. This is the amazing part, that I took a little walk out away from the campsite with Joe Strummer and just had like this private little one-on-one. And I was just, and for me, I mean, I know I've worked with a lot of great people in my life, and I've met some, sure, I get that, but for me, this was just such a big deal. Like it was, I don't get starstruck, but Joe Strummer, I mean, that was a thing for me. So, just to have that moment with him, we had talked on this talk. We talked about doing something. He was a fan of George Clinton.
Yeah,
and he's like, could we do something with George Clinton? I'm like, man, I'm sure he'd be into that. I said, why would George not want to do something, with you?
Absolutely.
So he said, well, after the holidays maybe, because I'm on tour and then it's Christmas and blah, blah, blah. So I said, all right, let's talk about it. And we made a plan. I got his info. I go back after this long hang because we're driving out of there. We're going to the airport. It's at 8 a.m. It's fucking miserably hot and humid, and we're dehydrated and drunk. And Sean and I are stumbling back to the hotel on the buses. And I go up there. I'm laying down with George up in his room, and I'm like, "Hey, man, Joe Strummer wants to do something with you." And he's like, "The dude from the Clash?" I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, "Oh man, yeah, let's do it." I'm sitting here being the middleman between George, and I get to play on it. So I'm like,
fuck.
So this is a moment for me, So I'm talking to George. I'm laying down, just in his room. I'm just laying on the bed because I'm pretty out of it. And finally, he says, "Hey, man, are you staying in Japan?" I'm like, "No." He says, "Yeah, well, you might be missing the bus." I'm like, I thought that because George was there, I was cool. Like, I'm not going to leave him behind.
Yeah.
But he's like, "No, you guys are going without me. I'm staying." I'm like, "Oh, shit."
You're stuck in Japan?
Yeah, and I run out the door, and the buses are literally leaving. I mean, they're driving away at that moment. But I got the bus. But I got on the bus. But yeah, also Patti Smith had hit me up for George's autograph earlier. That was pretty surreal too. So that was one of those moments, man. The Japan moment with George and Joe was kind of
that's the payment of rock and roll there.
Hey, that's why we do it, right there.
That's why we do it with the stories,
man. Just that hang, just those hangs right there.
That's so true.
And I did say after that, I said, it's good. I'm good. If that's it, I'm good, man. But You say that, but then you always want more. You say, now if I could just get to this level, I'd be fine. Well, I've got to that level a couple times, and apparently I'm not fine.
Yeah. That's like me with the comedy. I'm like, oh man, I got passed at the Comedy Store.
Dude, I saw you on Conan, man. Come on. I'm like, that's my man, Dean Del Rey on Conan. Get out of here.
Well, I can't thank you enough for coming by and doing the show.
Yeah, man.
And it was great to have you. Are you doing any more of those Mint shows? Because I'll come and jam with you. I'd
love for you to do it. I think we're going to do one in May. I would love you to come out.
I'm in.
And, man, do some tunes. It's funny. I brought you all these CDs. You don't have a CD player.
I
These
know.
are like relics. But, that last CD I did, Tab Benoit produced. And I got Doug Wimbish on bass on that one.
Yeah.
From Living Color. I got Terrence Higgins on there.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit before we split here. You've got some records out right now. So here's Eric McFadden, Pain by Numbers. Look at this one. Eric McFadden does AC/DC acoustic tribute.
Yeah.
Wow, and it's a Power Age cover. This is amazing. Let's look what you do here. Hell's Bells, Rock and Roll Damnation, Girls Got Rhythm, Have a Drink on Me, Beating Around the Bush, You Shook Me All Night Long, Kicked in the Teeth. Oh, what a song, huh?
Yeah, right?
Oh, Two-Faced Woman with the Two-Faced Laugh.
I've heard you kick ass on that one.
Oh, it's so good. Sin City, Touch Too Much. I just did that with Corey Taylor. Fucked it up. I couldn't hear myself singing all flat. Those guys. I love Corey Taylor, but they play on 10.
Oh, shit.
On 10. They're the old school. I step on stage, it's like, grrr.
There ain't nothing. Yeah, you're right.
A Whole Lot of Rosie. It's along with the top right on. That's great. And then what's
Josh Z's on that one too. He plays like 3 songs on that.
Oh, that's awesome. And then Eric McFadden and Wally Ingram. Wow, this is a great cover with the two roosters.
Mike Davis, man. Les Claypool's on that album.
Oh, yeah?
Kev Mo, Nels, Cline, a bunch of cool folks.
Holy smokes. Eric McFadden Trio, which is what you...
Oh, yeah. Paulo Baldi on drums, who plays with the Claypool, Lennon Delirium, and that's James Whiten on the upright, badass.
Yeah, you got a lot of music out, but I love that about you. Look at this, Train to Salvation. And these all are a lot of work. This isn't just fucking put a CD out. Look at these look at all these CDs you got. Here's the last one. What's this one called?
Delicate Thing, man. That was Ron Donovan did the cover for that. Rest in peace, brother Ron, man. He was a great rock and roll poster artist and a dear friend.
Really great. Well, thanks for coming on. Where can people find you?
Man, I'll be around.
Yeah, are you on Instagram
I'm going to be on
or
tour
Twitter?
a lot, actually, this next few months. So I'm doing some dates with Tab Benoit, some of my own, but it's all just ericmcfadden.com or wherever you may find them, Facebook and all that.
And all over YouTube, right?
Yeah, all over the YouTube, but I'll be...
You do any guitar lessons on YouTube or anything?
I'm starting to do that. Just starting to do with some lessons, and I'm kind of doing it in affiliation with this thing called themusicschool.org.
Okay.
And, with my buddy Adam McIntosh. So I'm doing it online and in private when available. So, yeah, it'll be happening too.
Kind of like like a bunch of people that do like those master classes and stuff.
Yeah,
that's kind of cool
did
stuff.
A few of those. I did some of those in Europe, and I'm probably doing more of those around here. So that'll be a thing too. So hitting the road, and then I'll be doing that in between, and just keep grinding, man. That's what we do.
That's all we can do until we're dead.
Grinderman.
The only thing that stops us is death.
Death. That'll be it.
That'll be it.
And that might not even do it, man.
That might not even do it. Be rocking in the skies. Right. Thanks a lot, man, for coming by.
Love you, man.
Yeah, I love you too, man. Awesome. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in to another episode of Let There Be Talk. Check out Eric McFadden stuff. Let me give you the proper spelling. It is E-R-I-C, not K, E-R-I-C. And then McFadden, M-C-F-A-D-D-E-N. Look him up, share his music, throw him some money, buy a ticket, do whatever you can to support rock and roll, art, comedy, everything out there. See you guys. Keep the candles lit. Long live Brody Stevens.